Amaka grew up in a quiet middle-class family in Surulere, Lagos. Her father, Mr. Okafor, was a dedicated civil servant who believed in hard work and discipline, while her mother, a primary school teacher, instilled in her the value of education and humility. The youngest of 3 children, Amaka often felt overshadowed by her older siblings. Her brother, who excelled in sports, and her sister, a social butterfly who seemed to shine effortlessly. Amaka found her comfort in books, spending hours in the family's modest library. Her parents' modest income meant she learned to cherish the little things, like Saturday family meals and walks to the neighborhood park. Her childhood was quiet, structured, and filled with the unspoken pressure to succeed academically. Kemi, on the other hand, came from a lively, close-knit family in Ikorodu. Her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Adeyemi, owned a small but thriving catering business, making their home a hub of constant activity. Kemi grew up with 4 siblings in a house that always smelled of spices and freshly baked pastries. Her parents encouraged all their children to be independent and outspoken, values that Kemi embraced wholeheartedly. She was the ringleader of her siblings, often coming up with creative games or helping in the family business by chatting with customers. Life was chaotic but filled with love, laughter, and the comforting noise of a big family. Kemi's outgoing nature and knack for finding humor in every situation made her the life of any gathering. Though Amaka and Kemi came from different worlds, their bond was instant when they met at university. Amaka's quiet resilience balanced Kemi's vibrant energy, and they quickly became each other's support system in the whirlwind of campus life. Amaka clutched her bag tightly as she walked briskly through the bustling university campus. Lagos was alive with energy, but inside, Amaka felt a strange emptiness. At 24, she was at the top of her class in medical school, a place many envied, yet her life felt like an endless cycle of lectures, exams, and sleepless nights. Valentine's Day was just days away, but it was no different from any other day to her, just another excuse for distraction she had no time for. Her best friend, Kemi, was the complete opposite. A ball of energy with a knack for making people laugh, Kemi often teased Amaka about her all-work, no-love life. That afternoon, as they sat under a mango tree on campus, Kemi nudged her playfully. "You can't live like this forever, Amaka," she said, waving a glossy flyer in her face. "The Valentine's campus gala. You're going. No excuses." Amaka wrinkled her nose. "Kemi, you know I don't do parties." "Exactly. That's why you need to. Please, just this once. Who knows? You might meet someone who changes your life." Reluctantly, Amaka gave in, though she already regretted it. The night of the gala, she stood in front of her mirror, fidgeting with the red dress Kemi had insisted she wear. It felt too bright, too bold, too unlike her. Still, she didn't want to disappoint her friend. The gala was a whirlwind of music, laughter, and dazzling lights. Amaka stood awkwardly in a corner, clutching a glass of juice, when she accidentally bumped into a young man with a camera slung over his shoulder. "Oh no, I'm so sorry," she stammered, watching the juice spill onto the floor. The man laughed, his voice warm and reassuring. "No harm done. Let me help." As he knelt to clean up the mess, he looked up and smiled. "I'm Kunle, by the way. You don't seem like you're enjoying yourself." Amaka managed a small smile. "I'm not really used to these things." Kunle stood up and gestured to his camera. "Well, maybe I can help. Sometimes the best way to enjoy life is to see it through a different lens." They talked briefly, and for the first time in a long while, Amaka felt a spark of something she couldn't quite name. She learned that Kunle was a photographer, passionate about capturing stories. What she didn't know was that Kunle's life was far from easy. After losing his father, he had dropped out of school to take care of his younger siblings. Photography was his way of keeping their family afloat, even as he dreamed of doing more. Over the next few days, Kunle and Amaka's paths crossed again and again. Each meeting was like a page in a book, revealing more about the other. Kunle showed Amaka the beauty of spontaneity, dragging her to watch the sunset or explore hidden corners of Lagos. Amaka, in turn, encouraged Kunle to dream big, helping him research opportunities to advance his photography skills. As Valentine's Day arrived, Kunle surprised Amaka with a photo album. Each picture was a snapshot of her at the gala, laughing, dancing, or simply lost in thought. Beneath each photo, he had written heartfelt notes about how she had inspired him. Amaka was overwhelmed. "Kunle, I don't know what to say." Kunle smiled softly. "You don't have to say anything. Just promise me you'll stop being so afraid to live." With trembling hands, Amaka reached into her bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "This is for you. It's an application for a photography scholarship. I think you should apply." Kunle stared at the paper, his voice thick with emotion. "Amaka, thank you. Truly." Their moment was interrupted by a phone call. Kunle's face fell as he listened to the person on the other end. "It's my sister," he explained. "She's sick. I need to go home." Without hesitation, Amaka offered to come with him. Together they traveled to Kunle's home, where Amaka saw firsthand the challenges he faced. His younger siblings looked up to him with adoration, and it was clear how much he sacrificed for them. Using her medical knowledge, Amaka helped Kunle's sister recover, spending the day teaching the family how to stay healthy. By the time they left, Kunle's gratitude was written all over his face. "You've done so much for me," he said as they walked back. "I don't even know how to thank you." Amaka smiled. "You've done just as much for me, Kunle. You've shown me what it means to really live." Back at the university, Kunle received incredible news. He had been shortlisted for the photography scholarship. He called Amaka immediately, his voice filled with joy. "That's all you," he said. "You believed in me when I didn't." "And you believed in me too," Amaka replied, her voice soft. As they sat on a bench, watching the sunset, Amaka placed her hand on Kunle's. "Maybe love isn't a distraction," she said. "Maybe it's the reason we keep going." Kunle smiled, and in that moment, they both knew their story was just beginning. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions for both Amaka and Kunle. Their bond had deepened, yet neither of them dared to put a name to it. Amaka found herself looking forward to Kunle's calls, his voice becoming a source of comfort amidst the stress of medical school. Kunle, in turn, found renewed hope in his dreams, fueled by Amaka's unwavering belief in him. One evening, as Amaka sat in her dorm room reviewing medical notes, her phone buzzed. It was Kunle. "Amaka, I got the final interview for the scholarship," he said, his excitement barely contained. "They want me to come to Abuja next week." Amaka grinned, pride swelling in her chest. "Kunle, that's amazing. I knew you could do it." Kunle hesitated before speaking again, his voice quieter this time. "It's just, I don't have the funds to travel. The interview is in person, and I don't know how I'll afford the trip." Amaka's heart clenched. She knew how much this meant to him. "We'll figure something out," she said firmly. "You're not giving up now." The next day, Amaka told Kemi about Kunle's situation. Kemi, always brimming with ideas, snapped her fingers. "Fundraiser. We can gather donations from students. Everyone loves a good success story." Amaka wasn't sure if people would care enough to donate, but Kemi was persuasive. They made flyers, shared Kunle's story on social media, and even set up a small stall on campus, offering to take Polaroid pictures for a small fee, an idea Kunle loved. Within 3 days, they had raised enough money for his trip. Kunle was speechless when Amaka handed him the envelope. "I don't know how to repay you," he said, his eyes shining with gratitude. "Just go and win that scholarship," she replied with a smile. A few days later, Kunle boarded a bus to Abuja. The journey felt surreal, as if his dreams were finally within reach. Amaka waited anxiously for his updates, her mind torn between excitement and a strange feeling of longing she couldn't quite explain. Then late one evening her phone rang. "I got it," Kunle whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "Amaka, I got the scholarship." Amaka let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Kunle, I'm so proud of you." But before they could celebrate, A shadow loomed over their happiness. The scholarship required Kunle to relocate to South Africa for 2 years. Amaka's heart sank. 2 years. What did this mean for them? Kunle's words lingered in Amaka's mind long after the call ended. 2 years in South Africa. It wasn't just the distance. It was the uncertainty. What would happen to them? Were they even a them yet? The next day, she met Kunle at their usual spot under the mango tree on campus. He was beaming, but when he saw her expression, his smile faltered. "You're not happy for me?" he asked softly. "I am," Amaka said quickly. "Kunle, you deserve this." She sighed. "I didn't think it would mean you leaving." Kunle reached for her hand, hesitating before lacing his fingers with hers. "Amaka, this is everything I've dreamed of, but I don't want to lose you." She looked away, her heart pounding. "I don't want to lose you either." They sat in silence, the warm Lagos breeze carrying the sounds of students laughing in the distance. Finally, Kunle spoke again. 2 years isn't forever. We can figure it out. If you want to. Amaka swallowed the lump in her throat. She had never been one for risks, but hadn't Kunle already taught her to live a little? "Let's try," she whispered. Kunle's grip on her hand tightened. "We'll make it work. I promise." The weeks leading up to Kunle's departure were bittersweet. They spent as much time together as possible. Late-night phone calls, stolen moments between Amaka's lectures, and quiet walks where words felt unnecessary. Kemi, ever the realist, pulled Amaka aside one afternoon. "Are you sure about this long-distance thing?" Amaka hesitated. "I don't know. But I have to try, Kemi. He means a lot to me." Kemi sighed, wrapping an arm around her. "Just don't lose yourself in it, okay? If it ever feels like it's weighing you down, remember. You have a life here too." Amaka nodded, but deep down, she already knew that loving Kunle wasn't something she could walk away from easily. The night before Kunle left, he surprised Amaka with one last gift. Another photo album. This time the pictures were of them. Their first meeting at the gala, their late-night study sessions, their small adventures around Lagos. Beneath the final picture, a candid shot of Amaka laughing. He had written a single line. "No matter how far I go, you'll always be my favorite view." Tears stung Amaka's eyes. She hugged the album to her chest, then looked up at him. "I'll miss you so much." Kunle cupped her face gently. "I'll miss you more." Their lips met in a soft, lingering kiss, one filled with promises unspoken, with hope and the weight of goodbye. And then, just like that, Kunle was gone. The first few months were tough. Time zones, busy schedules, and spotty internet made communication difficult. But they found ways to stay connected. Voice notes filled with laughter, surprise video calls, and long messages about their days. Yet, as Amaka buried herself in medical school, and Kunle got lost in his new world of photography, a slow, creeping fear settled in her heart. Could love truly survive distance? Or was this just the beginning of the end? Let's continue watching. The months turned into a year, and though the love between Amaka and Kunle remained, the distance was taking its toll. Their calls became less frequent, their messages shorter. It wasn't that they didn't care. It was life pulling them in different directions. Amaka excelled in medical school, spending sleepless nights in the hospital wards, while Kunle flourished in South Africa, capturing breathtaking images and networking with industry professionals. Every time they spoke, it was filled with warmth and longing, yet an unspoken tension lingered between them. Then came the visit. After nearly 2 years, Kunle returned to Lagos, and the moment Amaka saw him at the airport, it was as if no time had passed. She ran into his arms, breathing in the scent she had missed for so long. "You're finally home," she whispered. Kunle chuckled. "I told you I'd come back, didn't I?" For a few weeks, they were inseparable again, reliving old memories, visiting their favorite places, and imagining a future together. The distance had changed them, but the love remained. One evening, they sat by the Lagos lagoon, watching the sunset. Kunle reached for her hand. "Amaka, I don't want to waste any more time. Let's start planning our future together." Amaka's heart swelled. She had dreamed of this moment. I want that too, Kunle. More than anything. But fate had other plans. One afternoon, during a routine hospital lab session, Amaka received her blood test results. She skimmed through the report casually, until her eyes froze on one line. Her heart pounded. She remembered Kunle once mentioning that his mother was always concerned about sickle cell because he was as too. Dread settled in her stomach. If they both carried the AS genotype, it meant they had a 25% chance of having a child with sickle cell disease, a painful lifelong condition. The next day, she met Kunle at a quiet cafe, her hands trembling as she held the report. Kunle, we need to talk. He saw her expression and frowned. What's wrong? Amaka took a deep breath. I got my test results back. My genotype. IMAS. Kunle's face paled. He didn't need her to explain. He understood immediately. Silence. A long, painful silence. Kunle swallowed hard. Amaka, that means... Tears welled in her eyes. We can't get married, Kunle. Too risky. We can't bring a child into this world knowing they might suffer like that. Kunle clenched his jaw, looking away. He knew she was right. He had seen the pain sickle cell warriors endured. Constant hospital visits, crises that left them weak, and a lifetime of suffering. Still, it felt cruel. After everything, after all the distance, after waiting for each other for 2 years, was this how their story would end? I don't want to lose you, he whispered. Amaka wiped her tears. You won't. We may not be able to be husband and wife, but Kunle, I can't imagine my life without you in it. You're my best friend. Kunle blinked back his own tears, his heart aching. And you're mine. They sat there for what felt like hours, holding hands, grieving the life they had dreamed of but could never have. Yet, as painful as it was, they knew that some love stories didn't need a wedding to be real. Some love stories lived on, not as lovers but as something just as beautiful. A bond unbreakable. A friendship eternal. And with that, Amaka and Kunle walked out of the cafe, side by side, knowing that while fate had rewritten their ending, their story would never truly end. My dear viewers, this is where we come to the end of the story. Subscribe, like, drop your thoughts on the comment section and share my videos to your loved ones. See you all on my next story. Bye.